Does old age have meaning? We live in a world full of symbolism and shared meaning. Meaning is so powerful, it can even be a matter of life or death for many cultures. But in here we have two main questions. First, does old age have a meaning for society? And second, how do individuals actually experience their lives as meaningful in the last stage of life? Social gerontology as a science tries to answer these questions by studying two areas of life that provide contrasting views of activity and disengagement. The exposed questions in here are related, and in a way they pose a challenge for the gerontology field due to the different meanings old age takes on over the course of one's life. To focus on these questions about meaning and aging, we can begin with two domains, leisure and religion. These domains offer alternative perspectives on how people find meaning in life. How do patterns of leisure activity change over the course of life? In old age, leisure often begins to take the place of work, both in terms of having more free time and as a way of finding meaning in life. So how do we define leisure? Leisure is defined as an activity engaged in for its own sake. Stereotypes of old people's activities, such as shuffleboard or bingo, are mistaken because age alone doesn't predict what people do with their leisure time in later life. Old people are not all alike. And lastly, individual differences, gender and social economic status all play a big part in what activities older adults decide to engage in. In explaining the patterns of leisure, it is important to note that people over age 65 continue to engage in the same activities with the same people as they did in middle age. Patterns of late life leisure have important implications for the economy in which we live. The gray market is stratified by age, and in here you are introduced to the term of young old, which is described as ages between 65 and 74, the term of old, people between 75 and 84 years of age, and the term of oldest old given by ages 85 and over. Distinctions are made between these three categories of late adulthood consumers. Education and income are the biggest factors in how older people spend their free time. For example, retired people who have more money have more choices in general, and they are more likely to change their patterns of activity more often. About 3/4 of older Americans say that religion is very important in their lives. It is natural to expect that interest in religion increase with advancing age given its association with increased mortality. The continuity theory reminds us that as people age, they tend to maintain earlier patterns of practice and belief. However, religious involvement in old age tends to follow also a pattern of multidimensional disengagement, and this means that as people grow older, they may withdraw from some activities but show an increase in personal religious practice. And to exemplify this idea, people might not be interested in going to church, but they still have a faith or read the Bible or tune into a religious TV radio channel. It has been observed that older Americans continue to display patterns of religious identification similar to those among younger age groups. It also has been observed that older women have higher levels of religious participation and belief than older men. Churches and religious organizations play many roles in the lives of older people in formal religious programs through pastoral care programs and as sponsors or providers of social services. Studies have shown a positive correlation between well-being and religious beliefs among older individuals. But it's difficult to define and measure what religiousness actually means in people's lives. Also, it is unclear wherever or not religious involvement actually promotes physical health. Yet, social scientists believe that religion helps older adults cope in many ways, such as reducing the impact of stress in late life illness, or by providing a sense of order and meaning in life. In addition, religion groups offer social networks, and having a faith has been observed that it's strengthening one's inner psychological resources such as self-esteem. While habits of religiosity tend to remain stable in later life, a recent study found that 40% of people who experienced a distinct change in faith did so after age 50. Faith stages theory. It states that people move from simpler, more literalist idea of religion to levels where they see themselves in more universal terms. Theologians who have reflected on the life course consider this late stage of life a contemplative dimension for aging, therefore a spiritual journey. 6 dimensions of spiritual well-being have been identified through self-determined wisdom, which assumes acceptance of the totality of life, and through self-transcendence, such as revival of spirituality, which altogether lead to a discovery of meaning in aging, preparing one for the own death. Gerontology tries to depict the facts of old age as a way of understanding the meaning of aging. Have you ever wondered what do older people say about what gives meaning to their lives? The majority of older adults usually describe their lives as meaningful in a variety of ways, through work, grandparenting, leisure activities, and intimate adult relationships. But one thing is prevalent. Older adults do not see themselves old. They might joke here and there about their age, but in reality, they don't see themselves as old. From this perspective, researchers have identified the concept of ageless self. Regardless the discontinuity theory, older people are encouraged to maintain social connections. But this engagement, it should be based on a strategy for individual development, not conformity to social norms or activities. The productive aging idea brought through intergenerational programs should emphasize the self-development beyond the conventional roles attributed to older adults. The life course perspective views stages of life as social constructions that reflect broader structural conditions of life. Thus, as conditions change, so will the view of how people find meaning at different ages. It's not clear how the meaning of old age will change in contemporary post-industrial society. We must distinguish between a meaning that society ascribes to old age compared to what individuals find meaningful in their own lives. In the last part of our chapters, we'll find different readings aimed to enhance our understanding on the discussed topic. In this first chapter, for reading 1, found at page 41, the author is describing the life course journey of becoming an older person and asks a central question for us. Can I have become a different being while I still remain myself? In reading 2, Erickson and his colleagues challenge us to envision the influence elders will have on our society as healthy old people seeking and demanding vital involvement. What assumptions do the author seems to be making about current and future older adults? What might be some of the characteristics of viral involvement? These questions require reflective time from our part. Reading 3. What does it mean, the successful aging our authors referring here? This is an optimistic construction of old age, and I would be curious to find out what are your thoughts about this concept of successful aging. And in reading 4, you'll read yet about authors' insight on old age, describing older age as both a time of heroic helpness and the place of fierce energy. What do you think the author is trying to express about aging and being an old person? Can you think of any examples that illustrate the seeming contradiction? As a conclusion for our first lecture, the question of whether old age has meaning comes back to two alternatives: continuation of midlife values into old age, or discovering some new or special challenge that belongs to the last stage of life, or both. Either way, the future of an aging society will be shaped by all of us, because we are all simply our future selves.